Yo, what up, Knicks Nation? Welcome back to another game preview. We are previewing game 6 of the New York Knicks going against the Indiana Pacers. They're now back at Gainesbridge, back in Indiana, trying to extend this thing to a game 7. Let's see if they're capable of doing that. With me on the other side today to help break down this game is none other than my guy, Tyler Smith. He covers the Pacers for IndySportsLegends.com. Make sure to go give him a follow. Hit that thumbs up button for your boy. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And make sure to support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. Also, don't forget, we got another watch party tomorrow, Slate. So make sure to get there at 6 p.m. so that way you can get in there and go support the orange and blue. All right, let's get into this. Tyler, how you doing, man? How you feeling today?
I'm doing great. How cool is this to have a game 6, two rivals, Eastern Conference Finals? I mean, there's nothing like it. So no matter what happens, this is quite a joy to just to be part of. I mean, it's amazing.
Absolutely. It's been an up and down journey so far. And look, if we're gonna get right into it, the New York Knicks took the Pacers to task yesterday, man. They had a wire to wire victory, which hasn't been the case so far this series. So it was a little bit of a refreshing feeling to go watch the Knicks go out there and go dominate. Pacers didn't look as their normal, I guess, high octane scoring selves. But the Knicks were, man. And on top of that, they played some solid defense. They impacted the way that Haliburton was able to attack them. They made sure they always had two, if not three people to stop him from getting down into the lanes and looking for guys on the perimeter. What was your takeaways from yesterday's game from either a Knicks or Pacers standpoint?
Well, what's interesting from the Pacers standpoint is over the years they've like been known to lay some eggs, especially when they have a lead. But they really haven't done that much in this postseason, except for a couple game 3 opportunities. But for example, they went into Cleveland in game 5 and they didn't relax, and they obviously played really well and won that game in comeback fashion, like they like to do. But other than that, it wasn't all that surprising for the Pacers to lose the game. Obviously, some concern on their end with how they were defended, and even in the post game, saying certain things like they played harder than us, which the game before it was Mitchell Robinson saying that. And fans just kind of have to get used to the fact that that's often the case in a series. One team is probably going to want it more and play harder in certain nights, and fans may ask, "How can that happen?" Or a reporter will ask, "How can that happen?" But that's just part of the game. It happens. The Knicks had had their season on the line. And it'd be very strange for them to lose all 3 at the Garden out of those first 3 games. So kudos to them for keeping their season alive. And now it's, who knows what'll happen in a game 6. But the force that the Knicks played with, because they didn't even shoot that great, but they just played really well defensively, as you said, wire to wire. So big win for them, and series on, going to game 6.
Yeah, threes, they weren't really knocking down threes at a high rate, but they made sure to get into the paint, and that's where they were the most effective. I'm just enjoying how you brought up the just played harder than us, and Pascal Siakam just, getting a little aggravated with that question. I get it too, man. Like I get it. Where you're like, what else do you want to like when you ask that question, like it's like how deep can you really go into that? It's a very cliche saying, right? So I can
Yeah.
understand why there's some frustration with it, which is why it's funny and also true, right? There are going to be nights where guys are just playing with more energy, they're more alert, and so that's why you just say, "Hey, they have it, they want it more than us." Well,
Hmm.
like even from that standpoint, right? Like I feel like in yesterday's game, watching what the Knicks did, they were really able to slow the game down to their liking. Like they made sure that every offensive possession, like they got on transition pretty well. Pacers still won that battle by 1 point. I think it was like 16 to 15 or like 15 to 14, something along those lines yesterday for when it came to transition scoring. But when I watched yesterday's game, the Knicks did exactly what they wanted to do, which is we're going to muddy it up a little bit. We're going to slow it down. We're going to let our guys, Brunson and Cat, really get into their positions and then score effectively as they can. And then defensively, really, as I said earlier, they made sure that Halliburton didn't get into a rhythm. And I feel like when Halliburton isn't in a rhythm, and not necessarily like because when you watch him play, he doesn't have to score, right? We know that he's an elite playmaker. He's able to get everybody involved, like Siakam, Naismith, Nemhard. He's capable of getting all those guys involved, and that's how you know he's really going because those guys are playing at a high level. He can. He obviously we saw last not too long ago, right? Game four, he put up over 30 points, got 15 assists, no turnovers. Like he's capable of doing that. But I felt that
Mhm.
the Knicks, with the Knicks just making him uncomfortable into getting to his spots to get guys involved, that was like the turning point. And that's going to be the big thing that I'm looking forward to in tomorrow's game or today's game, whenever this drops. And is can the Knicks make him uncomfortable, or how will Rick Carlisle like tweak those things? I know we'll talk about it later, but that was like my biggest takeaway from what the Knicks did yesterday.
Yeah, he's the head of the snake. I mean, he runs everything, and the numbers completely back up even like shot attempts for him. So like I think the number's 15 when it's like less than 15 attempts. They might be like 1 and 6, and I mean, I'm muddying up the numbers, but it's pretty drastic as far as Pacer fans will know when he scores 20, they're like, some ridiculous record throughout the season, but it's also just shot attempts. And there are nights when teams, he'll have a clunker once in a while where they'll kind of take him out of his game and he'll be a little too passive. They usually do respond the following game. Um, with a better game plan for that. But he needs to be aggressive, even if it's not a 30-point night. He needs to be much more, at least the 18, 20, 22 points. And as you said, kicking to his teammates to get him going. So they need a double-double type effort from him, just like I think the Knicks need another big performance from their big two in Game 6.
For sure. Is there any concern from you with Halliburton not being able to replicate that, or do you think that because I don't watch all 82 Pacers games. That's why we got you here, man. That's why we got you here, Tyler. Is it like more like for Jalen Brunson? I can always say he's never gonna have a bad back. He's not gonna have a bad games back to back. Like if it's a bad game one night, he's gonna come back, course correction, and he looks just like the way he is. Is that the same thing with Halliburton, or you worry because maybe he does have stretches where he's not that prolific as a playmaker?
He typically, just like the team, typically responds after a loss. They've not even lost back-to-back games since March 10th, which obviously I know there's
Wow.
several off days in there for playoffs, but like that's a long time. Like we're coming up 2.5 months
Yeah.
since they lost two games in a row. He was saying some of the same things that he said after game three and how he performed in game four. So Pacer fans who are, I'm sure, just like Knicks fans, very excited but nervous for the next game. They're at least probably more comforted by his calmness and how I'll be better because he's typically backed that up. Now, whether it's like to the level of game four, I don't know because the Knicks may have figured some things out. So I think they could contain him more than game four's historic performance. But I do think you'll see a much better Halliburton. Will it be enough for Indy to win? I have no idea, but I do think Halliburton and the Pacers will have a much better response, at least in Game 5.
Are you worried about Pascal Siakam at all either? Because that's like the second guy for this team, man. He didn't, he was on a burner, an absolute burner, game three and game four, and then game five was struggling to get his shot a bit. I know the Knicks had like good defensive stops against him too, looking out of rhythm, not really getting to all of his spots. Even was like we're talking about like a foot two off. Are you worried about him?
Not really. I think from the Pacer side, if I were to worry about something, it would be the fact that you're going up against a great team who has their season on the line again, and they've got Cat and Brunson who can go off at any moment and can get theirs. So maybe defensively, but I think offensively, especially with how the energy is going to be in Game 6, how this team usually responds, Halliburton and Siakam both. Uh, they every time they get counted out, I mean, it's kind of a team full of those guys that you count them out, and then all of a sudden they put up 30 the next night. So I really think there will be big games from Halliburton and Siakam. Not much worry there. And then, yeah, the defensive side is what the Pacers have to focus on the most, I think.
What do you think was like the biggest thing defensively for the Pacers in this one? Like I know the Knicks were able to get to their spots, but is there anything that you saw that they went away from in the previous games that even, you know, gave the Knicks this much confidence to come into this matchup?
Maybe a little bit was. Neesmith played less. I think he played like 16 minutes.
Mm.
And Brunson was actually, unlike earlier in the series, was actually scoring on him as well. So whether he figured something out or, Neesmith is still a little bit hobbled, but as he said, no excuse. I got to play better. Said he didn't have the right mindset coming into that game. So I think a little bit too is, you feel you can't help but feel a little comfortable, even as like fans or media, as you're watching the game or you're at the game. It feels different 3-1 compared to what game four felt like. I mean, game four for the Pacers felt like you have to win this game. Game five was like, yeah, that'd be cool to, it has to be, it's like a natural human instinct for the players, I think, to just maybe relax a little bit. And so maybe they did. And then when they got punched in the mouth, they fought back a little bit, but I mean, they cut it to like 8 or 10, it wasn't much, but, that's, they got punched in the mouth. Neesmith was a little limited, didn't play as much, and then they just couldn't recover.
Yeah, like I get that considering I've watched the Knicks do that in two series where they've had like 3-1 leads, and next thing you know, game five comes around, they're all sleeping at the wheel. Detroit Pistons, Boston Celtics come back and show out. And now you got a game six. How confident are you going into game six that the Pacers are ready for this moment? Because for me, I mean, like Tyler, like, I'm not gonna say like I'm full like it's so funny with these playoffs of being on this side where you're watching your team down 3-1, you win a game. So now the hope, the optimism, it starts to rise even more. The confidence after what they did, they fought on home court, they got the win. It looks like it didn't look like it was in commanding fashion, right? Of course, there were mistakes that the Knicks made that they could work on, but as a Knicks fan and someone who covers his team, I'm a little bit more optimistic going into tomorrow's game that they could potentially push this to a game seven. Obviously, they got to go out there and go execute. But
Mhm.
some of the stuff that I saw yesterday, I'm like, oh, this isn't as bad as in game four where you're getting Josh Hart just making errant turnovers. Don't get me wrong, he was still making turnovers. He had three turnovers yesterday, and it was still head scratchers, but it wasn't as bad as game four. And then on top of that, um, they just weren't like outside of Brunson and Cat, like really knocking down shots. No one else was, especially from three. Like Bridges had his mid-range moments. OG had his moments like driving and attacking the lane. Sure, you had Bridges and Shamit contributing here and there, but it wasn't like this hot shooting night from the Knicks where, they could still be due for one of those type of games. They haven't really had that yet. So that's also where I'm thinking maybe they go into that. Maybe they get that mode in game six and push for a game seven though. That's how I'm feeling. So where's the confidence level for Pacers fans that this is where it's going to end for them?
I think there's probably some cautious optimism. I mean, maybe, I mean, I really feel like both fan bases probably feel pretty similar going into game six, where like, I think we're going to win this game, but I think it's going to be a war. I think it's going to be one of those that comes down to the end, who makes the biggest plays at the very end of the game. And both teams are capable. And there's so many variables and factors in this game. I mean, every possession is just wild to think about all the different storylines and all that. But the naturally some Pacer fans will be freaking out and because of how that game played out, and they kind of maybe forget that one game hardly ever means anything towards the next one. We've seen it all playoffs. We've seen another series. There's not much momentum in a series. There is in games, but I think game to game doesn't mean the Knicks won't win three in a row. But game to game is so different, and the adjustments are made that it's not really just like, oh, they figured it out and it's going to play out the same way in game six. That just doesn't happen. I know it's going to be the loudest probably the stadium's ever been in the 11 years I've been there doing it. So cautious optimism, but I do think it's going to be a scary for both teams. It's going to feel like the season's on the line for both, and it's going to come down to some final plays and final calls, and who knows, but it's going to be wild.
Well, the season's on the line for the Knicks. Not so much for the Pacers yet. You get under the crack in this. I mean, you guys were up
Yeah.
3-1, so it's like, should they come out with the urgency? Absolutely. I'm not saying that they won't, and I'm expecting them to do so. I'm not expecting another like 30, like for most of the yesterday's game, they were shooting like under 40%. I think even close to the 30% from the field. They end the game with shooting 40%, but that just tells you how good they are as a team where they could figure out how to get back into an offensive groove, whether it was Mathurin slowing down the game, getting to the free throw line, whether it was Haliburton starting to like figure out the puzzle and getting to his spots and finding guys. So that's where it's like I don't expect another performance where this Pacers team just is putting up bricks. I expect the Knicks to come back out with that same level of defensive intensity, but it's just I like this game could easily be a high scoring affair and it comes down to defensive moments, right?
Yeah.
No one has really locked down either one of these teams. It's going to come down to moments. So tomorrow's game for sure is going to be interesting. I I can't wait, but I can't wait. I'm trying to have some good sleep. You know what I mean? Like I don't
Yeah.
the nerves are starting to come back, Tyler. You already
Yep.
know how it feels, man. You already know how it feels. Salute to Knicks Nation. Thank you all for tuning up for another game preview. We are previewing game six. That's right, people. We're here at game six. Thank you all for tuning in. I know we got some Patience Nation in here too. I know some of you are back in the chat. You were very quiet yesterday in post game. Now you know you all like to show out when you're all winning, but you're quiet when you lose, man. I get it, but like I like y'all to keep that same energy. You know what I mean? I'd like y'all to keep that same energy. Regardless, hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Shout out to my guy Tyler Smith. He covers the Indiana Pacers for IndySportsLegends.com. Make sure to go give him a follow and go check out his work. On top of that, let's salute our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. Let me tell you something about Underdog Fantasy and why I enjoy it. I like to think I know a little bit more than what they're telling me. So when I log into the app, there's always two things that you can play. It's either do the daily fantasy or you can go create a ticket. If you want to go create a ticket, all you got to do is just make a selection of 2 to 8 players. You can mix and match across all sports. So it could be NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB. You got some PJ in there. You also got some soccer. All right. So you can mix and match across all sports. And it's simple as this. When you're creating a ticket, you're choosing higher or lower on any given stat. So let's say in tomorrow's game, you got Mikal Bridges. Let's say the projection for him is, I don't know, 14 and a half. I think Mikal will get 14 and a half tomorrow. I think he'll go higher than 14 and a half. I think we're about to see a lot of middies tomorrow, and he's going to be feeling pretty good, man. He had a good dosage. It wasn't a crazy amount, but I felt like he got into a little good rhythm where he could feel good about himself. So all I would do is just choose higher, and that's as simple as it is. So if you choose anywhere 2 to 8 players, you just got to choose higher or lower. The more players you win, the bigger the return is. And look, if you don't feel confident that all your picks will hit, you can go the insured route. So let's say you chose 4 players, all you need to get is 3. That way you still earn a little bit of cash. The other option that you got, if you don't want to create a ticket, you can do the daily fantasy draft. The fantasy draft allows you to put on your jam cap, face your friends or a bunch of randos, and see who knows who's going to perform on any single given night. And that's what's so fun about Underdog Fantasy, man. So make sure to go download the app, go to use the promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. And just go have fun, man, and play responsibly. All right, Tyler, let's get back into this thing. We got game 6 tomorrow. Man, so all the marbles, man. I know it's for game 7, but look, the Knicks are just trying to say, hey, we got to push this thing another thing, man. We need to get another chance. Pacers trying to close out. Anticipated, man. Between, as you said in the beginning, 2 historic rival foes. And for the Knicks, man, I'm just thinking about where Melo and them lost in game 6 to the Pacers on a Roy Hibbert block. That still haunts me to this day. I'm thinking about 25 years ago where the Knicks, want to go back to the NBA Finals. That was the last time they were in an Eastern Conference Championship. Who beats them? Indiana Pacers, man. And then how about last year where you're trying to make the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time? For last year, it had been 24 years. Who was it that stopped you? Granted, we had injuries, but it was the Indiana Pacers. I need to get this to a game 7, man. I need to get this to a game 7. It's there's blood, man. There's bad blood between these two franchises. I love it and I hate it at the same time. So, what do you think is going to happen tomorrow? What are the adjustments that you think is going to be made by Rick Carlisle and the crew?
Well, I think it starts with Halliburton and how he was defended. The thing I'll say about Carlisle and his staff is, and I think every probably fan base has this about their coaches, where in-game adjustments are not always maybe quick enough. Where like maybe you see something and then after the fact, it's like, why didn't they do this instead? But from game to game, this coaching staff has been really good at making those adjustments. That's one reason they don't really have long losing streaks or lose two in a row in a couple months. So I think with the study of the film, they're going to figure out ways where if Halliburton is defended in the same way, they're going to have some counters to that. So then a key will be back on the Knicks and their coaching staff. If Indy figures something out to counter it, will they be able to adjust quick enough to still make things tough? Because for them, they can't afford Halliburton to completely go off. Like if he has a decent game, they can absolutely, hang around and still end up winning in the end. They can't have another historic performance from him. So that's going to be big. And I will just say too, and this is going to scare both fan bases, but the coaching
Oh
decisions
boy.
in this game is going to be so huge. I can't even describe. Now, obviously, the players have to execute, and sometimes the coaches make good decisions and the players screw it up. That happens all the time. But I mean, I'm talking even down to the challenge decisions, like in game four, when the Pacers made a horrendous challenge decision when they've been really good at those all season. Like if that happens again and you lose a challenge late, I mean, I think this game's going to be so close that every single decision, every timeout, every like last game the Pacers played Jarris Walker for a few minutes and the Knicks have been extending their bench and it's like finding the right matchups and when to do this or that is going to be huge because even though these teams play different styles, to me, they're very even and two very good teams, and it's going to come down to all those adjustments and decisions on the fly.
For sure, it's going to come down to adjustments and decisions on the fly. And whew, I can already hear Knicks fans just nervous about Tom Thibodeau making adjustments on the fly. Shout out to my guy JD. He always talks about template coaching, and to some degree, it has been that where he just tips to stick to his guns. And I think the biggest thing where you're talking about in-game adjustments is he's already made one yesterday, which was and it was kind of due to the fact of like some foul trouble, but the staggering of Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns, I do like that a lot. Both those guys really can't share the floor just for defensive purposes. You don't want to have two weak defenders out there. So I do like that where you get Brunson in the first, Cat in the second. I mean, look, they're going to overlap during quarters regardless. You got Brunson again, who you got Brunson and Cat both in the third, but I feel like he really needs to lean in on that. And on top of that, Tibbs needs to lean in on utilizing the bench. And guys like DeLon Wright, Shamit, Deuce, Mitch, those guys are going to have to play critical. I know Mitch is starting, but he still feels like a bench to me, man. It's just because he's getting
Yeah.
20 minutes while Josh Hart's coming off the bench playing 36. It's still weird to me. But it's guys like that will Tibbs will have to feel the pulse of like who's in rhythm, who isn't, making quick changes. Because I feel like when you talk about making adjustments, you talked about it's like challenges. It also is down to the personnel. I know that you got to go execute, but it's also up to the coach to seeing who's actually in rhythm and who isn't. And when I look back at game four and you see that Hart is just having an awful game, that's up to Tibbs to say, you know what, I got to reduce his minutes. Who's can go in there and give me what I need right now? And I know that Josh does something very unique for this team that not a lot of players can do. The rebounding, the moving out in transition. He's one of the top guys that could score out in transition. He's another playmaker for this team. I know there's a lot that he offers, but if he's not feeling it, I'm looking to go to DeLon Wright. I'm looking for other guys to go in there. I'm looking for Deuce McBride. I'm looking for Deuce first before I go to DeLon, but like I'm looking for other guys to come into the rotation, go into a lineup, and make sure that we don't miss a beat because sometimes leaving a guy out there for too long, even though he can make impactful plays, if he's making more bad than good, he can cost you the game. There's teams that can certainly overcome bad play, but for this team, man, everything's on the margins, as you said. These teams are very close. Even though their
Mhm.
styles are very different, these teams are very close. And like for Tibbs, like that's what I'm looking for. What would you say that you would look for from Carlisle, like adjustment wise? I know you mentioned the challenge, but is there anything else that you're looking for that you wanted to make sure he has like a good pulse of?
Well, it starts with, finding what actions to get Halliburton going. But on top of that, I think the Pacers have a similar situation to the Knicks where you've got a guy, Josh Hart, who is, when he's on, he's doing a little bit of everything. The Pacers like kind of version of that is Andrew Nembhard, and Nembhard's had a rough series, especially scoring the last couple games. He's like a negative something, a big number when he's on the court, and that's one of those things too, where Matherin's been cooking the last couple games. Does Carlisle kind of turn to him more? But he's in the back of his mind, he's thinking Nembhard has been a winning player for all these years. He's been a playoff riser. He's been a guy that can completely disappear offensively, and then all of a sudden, like, game one overtime, I think he had like 5 points, and then he had like 7 or 8 in overtime. Hit a huge three when the Knicks were up four. The time Josh Hart lost him and he, cut and Halliburton found him for a big layup. It's like, how do you take a guy like that off the court who does so many things, even if he is negative? So I felt, Hart and Nimhard, that'd be wild if if the play of those guys ends up deciding this series. But it's very possible. So those adjustments are so key. But some of the guys that you've been trusting for years, how do you take them out when they've done so much and can make such winning plays for you?
So that's the challenge. That's the challenge, Tyler. And that's like even though we can get on Tom Thibodeau for leaving Josh Hart in for, 36 minutes that game, it's these guys are like so ingrained in their ways at times where it's like, look, I gotta give like my guy, like who I've, who's been my ride or die for multiple years now, like he's, 9 out of 10 times always come through for me in the clutch. Like, why would I go away from him now and not let him work it out? Like he's earned that right, but it's still that's still the difficulty. It's like sometimes even though guys have earned that right, you gotta know when to pull you know, pull back, man. Pull out the hook and be like, all right, man, get back over here. We're done with this. Look, tomorrow's game is gonna be impactful. I'm looking for like I know Brunson and Cat are gonna do the damn thing. It's so tough to talk about like the star players. Like we know what the star players got to do, man. That's why they're the star players. That's why they get paid the big bucks, right? I know
Yeah.
what Towns and Brunson need to do tomorrow. You know what Haliburton and even Siakam need to do tomorrow. For me though, it's going to come down to who are your X factors, and it's been tough to figure out for this series just because there has like the Pacers have really thrown off the rhythm of this team where Bridges, I thought this would be a good Bridges series. It hasn't really been a great Bridges series for him. Defensively, he's been fine. I think like in some occasions, not perfect, not great, not good, but fine. Like he's been passable for most of it. Like I know we could find, a lot of examples where he's not guarding Haliburton and so forth in the right fashion, but I think he's been fine. OG defensively has been fine too. Offensively, I'm still waiting for him to get into a rhythm. And I'm looking at those two guys right now, man. Like I know what the bench is going to give him, but I'm looking at those two guys because for this Knicks team, they need a third scoring punch, and it should be Bridges. But I don't know if I'm going to go with Bridges. That's the thing. It's like I feel like we're due for a big OG game, man. He's been kind of a little dormant, so I'm going to lean towards OG giving us a big game, and especially from knocking down threes. That's what he really needs to do tomorrow. I know defensively what he's got to do, but offensively, I'm looking for this guy to knock down threes when he's left wide open and to attack the lane. Who are you looking for an X factor for the Pacers?
Well, I think, and again, it's gonna sound similar because I feel like both teams need that third guy. Who's gonna be that third guy? Um, Knicks have those main two options. Pacers have several guys that can randomly just step up, and I mean, we could see 4 threes from Obi Toppin randomly. Like it's just it's crazy.
Now you're just trying to hurt Knicks
Yeah.
fans, man. If you tell me we got to lose to the hand of Obi Toppin tomorrow, that
Yeah.
is going to be downright dirty.
TJ McConnell driving in and falling down and throwing up, six prayers that somehow go in. I mean, it's just like
That's the second annoying option. All right, you're just going down the list for me. Keep going.
Thomas Bryant. No, not really. Yeah, but who's going to be that third guy to step up? I feel like for the Knicks, it hasn't always been the case, but again, assuming the top two guys do what they're supposed to do, then if a third guy even gets, upper teens and points, hit some big shots, that's going to be huge because I think one of the things that we can pretty much guarantee will happen, which is different from when you're at home facing elimination, when you're on the road, Pacers will go on a couple runs and it's going to be loud. And can the Knicks you know, stop the bleeding quick enough without just calling timeouts every time? Can they stop it quickly enough? And can that third guy make a big play, even though it's on the road with your season on the line? Guys that may or may not have really been there and done that before. That's the big challenge. Which is why so many series that go 3-1 end up with a game five winner and then the game six and ends in six. That's why so many have happened that way because it typically flips back and it's hard to do it again. But if the Knicks get that third guy and if they stop the bleeding on those Pacer runs, give themselves a chance, that's when Brunson and Cat can win them a game late. And as scary as it would be for both teams to have a close game, I think that's what's going to happen.
Close game. I'm expecting a close game. Are you expecting a high scoring game tomorrow?
I am. As you were talking earlier, I was thinking like this one's probably going to be more like the game one start or the game, I think four, where it's like punch, 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 where we've had a couple games that felt a little bit more like the early 2000 series, where it's like,
Hmm.
struggle and like 106 to 100 was, the game three score.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be Pacers come out swinging, kind of like game four though, but the Knicks kept right up with them. And it's like Halliburton's doing this, but Pacers are only up like three or four in the final few minutes. I mean, it was one of those things, but they made enough plays at the end. That's my guess is that it's maybe not the highest of the series, but I think it's going to be up there.
Yeah, I'm just expecting a high scoring game tomorrow. I don't know why I have this feeling, but I'm expecting it. I could think it's one partially because I said earlier that Pacers shot poorly yesterday, and I think the Knicks have found a slight groove, and I'm still waiting for that big offensive performance. If this goes to a game seven, I'm not expecting big offense. I'm just being honest, quite frank with you. I feel
Yeah.
like everyone would be just very tense. Shots are going to be short, long. It's going to be all over the place. It's going to be very ugly if it gets to a game seven, and it's going to come down to who's. It's not going to be who's playing the most perfect. I feel like game sevens are typically like who's not playing the worst because everyone's just
Yep.
nervous and just like very tense from what that moment means, right? Unless like you start getting a big lead and then everything, you just bust the doors open. But that's how I feel about game seven. So tomorrow, I definitely agree that it will be a high scoring affair. Um, man, this could be a good one. I'm looking forward to it. Tyler, I appreciate you coming through as always and helping me preview these games. Please let the listeners know where they can find you. If we got any work up and coming, we should be on the lookout for.
On Twitter, Tyler Smith _ISL, anysportslegends.com. And I guess final words from me. If you think for both fan bases, you think if it was media day or training camp and you're thinking about what do we want this season to look like, I think both fan bases would have absolutely signed up for this to have a chance for the Knicks, first time back since 2000, and to say, hey, if we win one more game, then we come back to the Garden, a chance to go to the finals. For the Pacers, have a home game, have two more chances to go to the finals. I mean, it's pretty great to think about the 3 and 4 seeds being in this position. We all would have taken it. So win or lose, let's enjoy every minute. It's gonna be fun.
Well said, Tyler. I agree with that wholeheartedly, considering that if you told me, hey man, Knicks are going to be in the ECF this year, even though they got big expectations, like, and I look, it, I guess before we cut out, I got to ask your expectation on the Pacers because, and I'm not cutting it short, but like, if you told Knicks fans, hey, we make the ECF this year, I think everybody would have signed up for that instantly. The way that the season unfolded, and like just watching the Knicks be so up and down, never knew that. It's not that we never knew, is that I feel like for some, the confidence level to get there was even shaky just because his team was shaky. I mean, they haven't played really like a good, consistent 48 minutes where, it looks like yesterday against the Pacers, a wire to wire victory, and that wasn't even necessarily perfect. Or we think about game six against the Celtics, that wasn't perfect. And that was a wire to wire victory, just a complete blowout. Haven't really seen that. And so I get why some would even be, well, I don't know. Like, could we do it? But now we're here, and I think with that, that's a success for the season. Obviously, more games, and want to get to even go past that, right? You want to go past that. What was the expectation for the Pacers, though? Like, is this like I know you guys made the ECF last year. You brought back damn near essentially the same team. We were all
Mhm.
expecting to go back. Like, was that the margin? Was that the expectation entering this year?
I think that was the team's expectation to prove the last year wasn't a fluke and to prove they could, have another deep run. For me, honestly, I thought throughout the season where they were going to fall seeding wise and how good Cleveland and Boston looked, I thought that they would probably win one round and it would be tough to make it out of the second. Then you fast forward to not only making it, but winning the first two games at the Garden. All of a sudden, expectations are let's go win a championship. I mean, if you win those two games and you're in position to win, and then obviously the Thunder are an unbelievable team, but in years past, the Pacers have had the LeBrons and the MJs and the Malice at the Palace in the way of them. So it's not quite that mountain. I do think they could at least give the Thunder a series, but yeah, that's my thought was winning a series. I think they really wanted to get back at least this far. And then when you get that 2-0 lead, now it would be a huge disappointment to not get to that point.
Totally hear you, man. Totally hear you and agree. Tyler, once again, I appreciate you for coming through. And shout out to Knicks Nation for tuning for another game preview. We just previewed Game 6 of the New York Knicks going to Gainesbridge to go face off against the Indiana Pacers. Hopefully the Knicks win and extend this thing to a Game 7. That's what we're looking for. As we know, the Indiana Pacers want to just close this thing out on their home court. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Should be a good one. Make sure to give Tyler Smith a follow. Make sure that thumbs up button for your boy. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. Shout out to all the franchise channel members. Salute to all the mods. Shout out to UTM for always doing the damn thing in the chat, for being the chief mod in operation. Shout out to CP, Gamba, Tyler. Shout out to JD. Shout out to CK for all putting in the work. Shout out to all the KFTV writers, Jeff, Remy, Jalen, all right, Chris. Shout out to Omar. All you guys doing a phenomenal job. Appreciate all the work that everyone does. And we'll be ready for another Game 6.